Hello everyone, welcome in or welcome back. I am an independent journalist, and here on this channel I talk about stuff. Most consistently, I have been talking about a little-known Catholic organization called Opus Dei, which has been accused of some pretty egregious stuff, especially here recently. You may have seen an AP article from 2021 in which 43 former members accused the organization of essentially labor trafficking them in South America. And then much more recently, within the last couple of months, the Financial Times carried a chillingly similar story, except that these women were from the UK and Ireland. So today we are going to be looking at another aspect of this entire thing, and I have something to share with you that I'm pretty excited about. But before we get into that, I did want to mention that I set up a Buy Me a Coffee account, which is basically just a virtual tip jar. If you feel that you have benefited or enjoyed the content that I share here and you would like to support me in some small way, then you can buy me a coffee for $5. The link for that is down in the description of this video, and while I don't expect to be paid for this work, that's not why I am doing it. It does take a lot of time and effort on my part to research all of this and put everything together, to edit it all and get it out to everyone. And I drink a lot of coffee while I am doing that. It is a caffeine-fueled endeavor, to be sure. So if you would like to buy me a coffee, then I would greatly appreciate it. And you, of course, do not have to. This is not me soliciting my viewers for funds or anything like that. I just wanted to mention it because, again, I drink a lot of coffee and this stuff does take a lot of time. But from the beginning, the aspect that I have found the most challenging about Opus Dei is the fact that regardless of the seriousness of the accusations brought forth against them, both in the media and by individuals seeking aid directly from criminal or civil authorities or the Catholic Church, the organization of Opus Dei has continued to escape any meaningful accountability for its actions and has continued to operate business as usual. Blame has been passed from the hands of the work and onto the heads of individuals and allegedly unaffiliated so-called corporate works, which are labyrinthian in structure and famously difficult to take to court. In my opinion, any organization which has been connected to the types of human rights issues that Opus Dei has should be more than willing to do the right thing and address the issues head-on, if for no other reason than to keep a clean public image. But in Opus Dei's case, it has instead invested significant effort into downplaying the seriousness of the situation, blanket denying any and all accusations, and behaving as if it is totally above reproach. For as long as I have been covering these issues, and as far as I had known, this strategy had not only worked well for the organization, but also served to strengthen its projected image of blamelessness and even victimhood. So imagine my surprise when about a month ago, one of the anonymous members of the r/Opus Dei exposed community published a series of posts detailing a long and drawn-out legal battle between a former member of Opus Dei and the organization itself, in which, after many years and several appeals, she emerged victorious, and Opus Dei, unable to deflect blame, was forced to pay back several thousands of euros for labor law violations, in effect labor trafficking, and for the mental and physical damage that she incurred as a result of her exposure to the organization. And even more surprising was the fact that this case, heretofore referred to as Tissier v. Opus Dei, did not occur in some bygone, murky past, which is where Opus Dei would have the public believe any and all issues have occurred, but well within our modern age, in 2016. Now, I'm not going to say that I am the best or the most competent or the most thorough citizen journalist that ever lived, but I do pride myself on doing my due diligence, pulling and following threads, and being as comprehensive and precise in my coverage as I possibly can. I have spent the last 4 years with my ears to the ground, researching, reading about, and listening to the historical aspects of Opus Dei's rise to infamy, and the experiences of those who have suffered as a result. Somehow, in all that time, I had never come across a single shred of coverage referring to this case, which should have, in my view, been referenced many times over, particularly following the 2021 AP article outlining the accusations of the 43 former members in South America, and the 2024 Financial Times article depicting a chillingly similar set of circumstances for former members residing in Ireland. And yet, the case is glaringly missing from those narratives. As it turns out, unless I had clairvoyantly known what I was looking for and were also semi-fluent in French, I never would have found out about this case or about Catherine Tissier. It is the opinion of those who have brought this situation back into the fore that Opus Dei had a vested interest in highlighting only the initial findings of the case, which favored the organization, once again whitewashing and downplaying the truth. The court case and any and all documents related to it are extremely difficult to find using normal web browsing techniques and lie buried under a veritable mountain of Opus Dei propaganda favoring the organization. Now, thanks to the efforts of former members, the narrative that Opus Dei has somehow never been charged for its misconduct can, at last, begin to be corrected. For those who are familiar with the tactics and behaviors Opus Dei encourages among its leadership, Tissier v. Opus Dei is yet another heartbreaking example of how the idealism and innocence of youth has been subverted and corrupted by a power-hungry organization with a vested interest in advancing its own monolithic rise to influence and control. But the case could also serve as a beacon of hope for those who have a desire and the means to pursue accountability and justice for the organization's crimes. Catherine Tissier was a young French girl who came into contact with Opus Dei via one of its infamous catering schools, at which point she was coerced into whistling at only age 14. Her life and potential were sacrificed on the altar of Opus Dei's agenda and, as an assistant numerary, became defined by long, exhausting 10 to 12-hour days, 7 days a week, for which she was not properly compensated, coerced vulnerability, a glaring lack of true consent, and spiritual stagnation. During her tenure, her mental health plummeted, and in an effort to do damage control, an Opus Dei-affiliated doctor prescribed her increasingly substantial doses of antidepressants and tranquilizers. Her physical health declined so badly that upon being allowed to visit her family, they refused to let her out of their sight and back into Opus Dei's clutches. She was declared unfit for work and that her life was in immediate danger. She required intensive care and a carefully administered drug withdrawal regime in order to wean her off of the pharmaceuticals and back into stable physical and mental health. As she attempted to regain her life, members of the organization allegedly came to her home on several occasions in an effort to remind her of her vocation. In 2001, she and 99 other domestic workers began their legal battle against Opus Dei in the French court system. The details of the court proceedings are nuanced, complex, and important. The case could serve as a legal precedent and guideline for future individuals or groups prepared to take Opus Dei to court again. Understanding the findings of the independent experts that were brought in to testify, as well as Catherine's testimony and the discoveries of the court, are vital. In order to make this information as readily available as possible, I have linked a variety of resources in the description of this episode, including an official English translation of the case, an FAQ document that was thoughtfully created by a former member of Opus Dei, which breaks down the particulars of Catherine's situation and the case itself, as well as the original Reddit posts that put this situation on my radar in the first place. It is a mountain of information, but I cannot stress enough how important it is. Please take the time to read through everything. In addition to that, I am pleased to announce that the Deep Dive project is featuring its first interview with a former member who has become intimately familiar with the details of the case. She approached me and offered to speak about Tissier v. Opus Dei because she has spent the time and effort familiarizing herself with the situation. She has requested that her name be omitted from this interview and that her voice be altered to protect her privacy and anonymity. The audio that you will hear today was altered using cutting-edge AI technology. It is often difficult, if not completely impossible, for former members to speak about the things that they endured while in Opus Dei. And while there are a variety of valid reasons for this, the largest is simply a desire to avoid re-victimization at the hands of the organization's leadership and those who carry water for the organization. The control that Opus Dei continues to wield in people's personal and professional lives cannot be overstated, which is why I applaud anyone who is willing to come forward and speak in any capacity. I am humbled and pleased that she felt confident enough in me and in what I am doing here to speak with me and share her perspective of the case. We both hope that this video will be a resource and a launch point for anyone interested in learning more about what is, in my view, one of the most compelling legal actions ever taken against Opus Dei. So, with that said, welcome to the Deep Dive Project.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, Catherine Tissier was an assistant neurary in France, in Paris, and she arrived at Donon, I don't know exactly how you said it, in about the age of 14 in 1986. And they were running a kind of, they were offering grade 5 teaching plus a 3-year hospitality certificate. So at the end of which you could get a job in the hotel industry. And so you really young girls at those borders, and they studied at that place and lived there. And so, but obviously that place was a fund for Opus Dei recruitment, and she got involved with the priests and the memories that they led her into a plan of life, the spiritual practices of Opus Dei. And by the age of 16, she agreed to whistle the kind of the slang word, Opus Dei for joining, to asking for admission. So she wrote the letter to join. And 17, she finished her hospital. Well, she started working in the centers of Opus Dei in Paris, and in particular the Couvel Chateau, the conference center of Opus Dei that hosts a lot of big retreats and events. So basically she was an assistant numerary from 16, 17, working really hard, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. How living the life of a member of Opus Dei with all the restrictions that assistant numeraries have. They can't go out unless they're accompanied by a numerary. They can't watch TV by themselves, all sorts of restrictions. Can't go to the theater or anything else like that. So anyway, she over the following years, she got into depression. She was sent to Opus Dei doctor every week or whatever regularly over the following 10 years. And she got prescription painkillers. She lost weight. She had a really rough time. There's no two ways about it. She had a really rough time working really, really hard. And the way that Opus Dei work is that you become vulnerable through having to be open about everything in your life. And so those are the weekly chat, and you have to be open about your doubts about your vocation, about how you pray, anything about purity, holy purity about it. So it's kind of like makes you very vulnerable. The way that they operate is to just encourage you to persevere. And so you become very dependent very, very quickly. And there isn't really any freedom at that point. You believe really that you have to follow that. And that's your way. And in conscience, that's the way that God wants for you. And that's it. There isn't any kind of greater discernment about your path, about your freedom, about your vocation. You're in the army. You're in the army, and you're under their control, and that's it. And that's it, really. So the court expert saw that pretty easily, pretty quickly, and I saw that as characteristic of a cult. And we know that really it's characteristic of Opus Dei, and it's not characteristic of the church, but that Opus Dei is pretty cheated about how it protects itself. The numeraries, in the assistant numeraries, are particularly vulnerable because they're working the whole time. They're working the whole time in Opus Dei settings, and then they don't even have this kind of outside job where they can be slightly normal. They're dependent for their whole life. Their whole life is in the centers, and they have no other means of income. They have no other job. They have no other hobbies, and they're working really, really hard. Less experience of everybody who stays very young at the time and Opus Dei. You either realize that's what's going on, and you have a sufficient sense of self to say, no, I'm not having that. You're not going to do that to me, and I'm not. Or you go along with it because you see it as God's will. You understand it as part of the Catholic Church, but you don't understand what they're doing, what's really happening aside you. You don't really understand that that's not a real authentic spiritual life. That's not how people have lived. It's fake. It's fake. It's complete abandonment of many personal boundaries. Right. You end up doubting yourself. You end up feeling guilty about yourself. Everything you do is anything that you feel really bad thoughts. You feel you have to share them with the director, because if you don't, that's bad spirit, and you're not going to persevere. And your way to happiness, your way to salvation is to share those things. You're taught that on a regular basis. The writings that you have to hear, and me internal documents from but stay there, talk to you in chats. And, what your directors say, everybody accepts that, and there's no sense in Opus Dei. But that's a bad thing. Maybe a few very wise people might, but no general sense that there's any problem with that. It's your way to holiness. So you become disempowered. You become shell of a person. You're not a free person. You're not a free person. You believe that what the director says is from God, because he has this, or she has the grace of state. So even if they're not perfect in themselves, they have this grace of state to communicate God's will to you. And so, the best thing you can do is to follow it. So, and that's not a real personal relationship there with God anymore. You're following what somebody says with God's will without you really taking part in that process. So, an Opus Dei works that way. Decisions are made about your life without you being involved and communicated to you. You're expected to follow. It's very much like an army, I would say, a very, very strict army that's fighting for their lives. So, and when you're fighting for your lives, maybe there's some special circumstances where you do lose a bit of personal autonomy, but that's the everyday reality for all Opus Dei members. They're constantly fighting for their spiritual lives by depending on the people above them. And that would have been the case for Catherine and any assistant Marie, and they wouldn't have had a regular rest life from that in their daily lives. They wouldn't have been able to see their families much. They wouldn't have had friendships out there, so they would have been particularly vulnerable. It's interesting, the idea of spiritual growth isn't really something that you ever heard about, because the idea of spiritual life is doing the norms and doing them somehow better and better, but there isn't really a sense of how you're doing it better. There isn't a progress towards doing it better. So it's a kind of, there isn't, directors are not really leading you on the path of growth, and at least in my experience, there's no sense that analysis idea, directors can change at any moment with somebody else. So there isn't, it's just, here is the recipe, is the prescription for getting to heaven, do the norms. That's the one of the things you hear a lot. How do you get to heaven, do the norms? Just, even when it's hard, you do them. I think this idea of stoic. Perseverance, funny, rehearse, they're going to do them. There's no option but to do it, and that's the holiness is doing it when you don't feel like it. It's in the way alien and concept of spiritual growth that doesn't exist outside Opus Dei. But it only really young makes sense once you accept the fact that you lost your freedom. You lost your freedom pretty early on because you kind of bought this. You're restricted your personal autonomy, and you bought this lie that this is the way to holiness. Without you really seeing your way around it, So, and then, if it's only express a doubt, you're then encouraged not to have those doubts, to get rid of them, to focus on other things, And I'd like pop psychology stuff, very basic recommendations. So when you see it from the cold light of day, as an outsider, the next member, it sounds crazy, but when you're in it, it's your life, and you need to get out of it. It costs so much effort, so much labor, and so much guilt. Most people a long time to realize that actually, what happened there was not real. You're risking this salvation if you don't persevere. Sort of like emotionally manipulative ways of saying it. There's not quite saying it so that, if you're under pressure. You see what I mean? It's veiled. It's often veiled, but it's not. It is pretty clear. It's clear enough. That's the message you get over time. And one of the things that the founder of Opus Dei went on about is, I love you as saints. It was crazy Spanish phrase, los quiero santos. I love you as saints. That's the whole idea, is that if you're saints, you're worthy of love, and if you're not, then you're not. And there's quite a few actually maxims about that. You're not worth anything if you're not. That in God, and there's quite a lot of emotional manipulative techniques that were practiced and allows to make you feel like a bad person if you're not persevering. That happened to me quite a few times, or things I'd shared in the chat seemed to sort of reappear in a meditation by a priest that kind of, where did it come from? And we similar to when I was staying in that in my chat, and weird stuff I never come across in my life. But you know, when you're feeling guilty, you just think, I'm gonna get over this, and I'm trying again, I want to keep going, you know, and there must be a better way, it must be some light at the end of the tunnel, there must be a better place around the next corner. If you just pull yourself together, you know, there's gonna pull yourself up by the bootstraps approach to religion. You know, many New Ways are on meditation. I ended up on meditation. I won't go into the details. But not counseling, but the meditation, and you know, just to kind of keep you going without really investigating the whys and wherefores of how you got there. I mean, that is the whole point, you know, of the state's approach, is to keep you in as much as possible, and they will use their own tools, their own. In this case, their school was a supernumerary. It worked since the age of 19, and so he was the one, you know, given the task of sitting Catherine with on the numerary with her. You may obviously that doctor was a man and she was a woman, and so there would be a protocol that you wouldn't see that the woman wouldn't see a man on her own. And obviously, you know, as a patient, you can agree for other people to come in to see you, but obviously there's no real consent in that Opus Dei situation. It's not like Catherine could have said, "Oh, today I don't want this person to come with me," you know, or somebody else to come with me. Or she wouldn't have had that choice really. So you know, it's not. So it's all on paper. It looks like it was a legitimate arrangement. You don't need to have somebody coming with it, but in practice, there's nothing free about who she could ask to come with her. No, it's a shame, really. But so everything about it was safe. It is about damage containment, really, trying to keep somebody in and not to share problems outside the work, not to wash your dirty laundry outside the work, you know, under the guise of protecting your reputation. So, yeah, we all know that. Whereas all the other girls went to the lecture in the village. Obviously, they didn't want Catherine being seen by an Opus Dei doctor, and that's the way it works in the work. You know, they don't want to risk you're discussing your vocation with an Opus Dei people. So, and the solution is never to question your vocation. The solution is to find a medical solution. And from my perspective, the Opus Dei just thinks that the mental health problems kind of strike at random. You never know who's going to get it and how, but somehow people do get it. And when you happen to say there's the solution, just like a physical illness, you know. So it's kind of a very basic way of understanding human nature. But that Dr. Biscuit said that he didn't know about her addiction to painkillers, and he was following her for 10 years. Looking after her for 10 years, I didn't know that. That's what he said to the court. So it was the pretty weak evidence, really. And obviously this idea that it was her mother's, the relationship with her mother, that was that ongoing source of her symptoms year after year after year while living, you know, state centers not with their mother, but it doesn't stack up either. You know, it doesn't make sense to me as a non-expert. Not to say it doesn't make sense to the court expert either. The one issue there is that they said that even if it was true, that her mother or whatever had someone, you know, was causing issues to her. It didn't matter though that Opus Dei knew she was vulnerable. Yeah. However, they were causing the vulnerability of somebody else, but they knew that, but continued to exploit her in her vulnerable state. So her vulnerability was well known, however it was caused. So they weren't going to go on with any impact from her value or whatever. And this was known as noting that in the second medical report that Codex wrote, she had moved on with her life. She wasn't really living with her parents anymore. She was going to get ready to get married. She had none of the symptoms that she had while she was in Opus Dei. So they were already clear that once she had freedom to live her own life, things got better by themselves, you know. Two of the doctors who certified her at that time did say there was a danger to her life. You know, it was a really serious situation. She had lost in a lot of ways. She needed a lot of treatment to wean herself off those sedatives, you know. And actually it was in a really, really, really bad situation. Yet they still tried to get her back. We know from other cases that sometimes members of the work, well, I would just basically dispatch back to my family. They're in such a state that Opus Dei can't look out for them anymore. They just dispatch them back. In that case, they tried to get her back. No, they obviously knew that situation was really, really bad for them and was desperate to try and get her back. Happily for her, that parents were really strong about standing up for her at that time. In 2000, she was allowed home to see her family at the yearly visit. And they were shocked at her state. She had lost a lot of weight. She had tremors. And so they didn't let her go back. They said to Opus Dei, there's a danger to her life. And so she was seen by a doctor at that time. She said, yeah, she's a major risk. And she never went back. Some of the directors from the college tried to get her back and visit her at home, and she wouldn't even see them. So she left, and pretty soon afterwards, she complained, and that started a criminal investigation. So in French law, when you complain to the authorities, then they start an investigation, and that included back pay for her, included investigation into the situation of all sorts of a large number of underage and overage students in that college who had not been paid for their work. They worked as interns or apprentices or whatever you call them, and had not been declared as work. Opus Dei regarded that as voluntary work or as placement work, and so there's a very big investigation. So anyway, for some reason that took a really long time. Essentially, Opus Dei was vindicated. Opus Dei won that case. There were no criminal convictions against them. These girls were working there voluntarily. It wasn't oppressive. There wasn't anything kind of coercion going on. The voluntary work by the students was part of that course, or they agreed to do it by themselves. So for whatever reason, that case won. I don't exactly know why it won and why all the evidence turned exactly the opposite way on appeal. So we only really have the appeal documents, so can only see how the court found out as a case on appeal. What was interesting is that there were the investigations that turned up some embarrassing things for Opus Dei. First start at Opus Dei, defendants said that Sister Newberry's story of work tragedy at 9 o'clock, but they slide on some of them and found them in their uniforms working at 6:30 a.m. So they should show that they worked longer than was declared. There was some falsified pay slips. There were some very embarrassing disclosures about the way that Opus Dei basically tried to conceal the reality of what work and a few things. The court wasn't going to accept this idea that you could work in a job voluntarily, and some of that job would be paid, and some of that time would be paid, and some of that time would not be paid. Either that was the kind of work you should do for a salary or not. You can kind of swing it so that some of it was voluntary and some of it wasn't. And that was the case not just for Catherine and the students, but also for the teachers there, including some of the supernumeraries who were defendants in that case. That didn't go in their favor. And the other thing was that they understood the real situation of Catherine, that she was working for Opus Dei. She wasn't thinking, I'm working for this hospitality college some of the time. I'm doing other stuff in the center where I live as an Opus Dei member. Other parts of the time, they didn't really see that distinction, because it wasn't a real one for Catherine, and it wasn't silly. And she was being managed by the same Opus Dei people in all the settings. And so this is something that Opus Dei tried to express, is that, but this difference of work in the center of your personal life and work in a hospitality college or come to the center as part of your contract. But the judges and hadn't weren't really having that. So and that's quite important for any other cases that happen across the road, I would say. But Catherine will wanted to have compensation for all the years she had throughout her 13 years in Opus Dei, but legally she could only claim to the 3 years previous to her consider a complaint from it because of the way the law works, it's not that she only got a fraction of the actual damage that she could have got if she kind of claimed all the way through. So the law was breached victim, and that is an issue for a lot of people, is getting a claim on time. Lots of legal issues around getting a claim on time. If you go one way, you start to sort of realize that you've been done by the state. Many years later, it's going to be difficult for you. And also, there are difficulties in identifying evidence, identifying defendants, entities that apply to you. Many years later, so many legal barriers. So, and that is the case often with abuse claims anyway. You're dealing with matters that are a long time like that. So that with their value anyway, So Opus Dei is lucky to get away with it. There's not much that they did. They didn't in Catherine Tissier's case. And, the evidence is there to see in the court decisions. Because once you join as a celibate, as a newry or assistant newry, your money is not the money. Your money is Opus Dei's. No, whatever the arrangements are, if you work for Opus Dei, okay, well, either they do things properly and pay you a salary and you hand it back, or in the old days they didn't get a salary, assistant newry, so it didn't matter. But the bottom line is however they worked it, whether they work it through legal means or not, you can be giving your money back if you're unless you're being dishonest, or unless you're not living the right spirit, So and that's really hard to maintain over the time. So you gotta hand your money in somehow. Now, what Opus Dei in France in that organization didn't do quite well enough was to get their own paperwork, so they were stupid enough to leave themselves, that means, in quotes, leave themselves open to criminal charges because they didn't quite work out that paperwork well enough, the paper trail and their contracts on them. So they didn't play the system well enough. So I'm pretty sure that Opus Dei much better at playing the system now. So Opus Dei can probably quite justifiably say that nowadays the system, given the right contracts, the right social security contributions, right salary, but at the end of the day, they still got this conscience obligation that you're living your life without it. Through Opus Dei, you give all your money to them. Whether it's coming to you this way, that way, the other way, doesn't matter. And the will, I'm sure, is the same. And everybody's got the freedom to make a will however they want. But, they've got a conscience obligation. And it's a wrong conscience obligation, but you still believe it. That you're going to make your will. So to stay, it's still going to happen. So the fact that they can say, well, we change things, it's just a question of them getting their legal stuff lined up properly. It's nothing more. I can't imagine any real change in their spirit. That somebody had real autonomy of your money. They just got caught out with their own poor accounting and paperwork. In the Tissier case, and it showed up that whole system of coercion to get you as a your assistant you were to give all your money. No, it would have financially honest, right? I think maybe they were hoping that people wouldn't really look into the Tissier case and see exactly how bad it was. The reality is, it probably isn't a way for them to prove it to their like. And the reality is, people were still obliged to give their money. But if you believe that's your way to salvation, and they're going to be saying, well, no, I did it freely. I did this freely. I really believe this. This is my way to salvation. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to hold anything back from God. Because once you have that conscious obligation, once you believe what Opus Dei has got you to believe, you can make it your own. You really do. And you can't imagine how you're not free in that. You just can't, because when you're not free, you don't realize you're not free. You tell whatever you're free. So anyway, the reality is there's no paper trail, there's no evidence that things are really changed, and it's a big cap in their credibility. So, and really, what Opus Dei need to be doing is to be being very, very clear with what happened in that Tissier case and say, and be honest about it, because they haven't been able to produce a press release after that. The final appeal when when they produced any press releases, after they won the first hearing in 2011, but nothing in 2013, nothing in 2016. So they've been very, very cute, very careful about what they said, and basically misleading by omission, I would say, being quite dishonest. I first started looking at the search results, and they're all the very top one, all 2011. They're from the Opus Dei website, there's some other websites saying Opus Dei's been cleared, absolved from responsibility. So I thought that was something else, and then I thought I saw something from Paris Match, which is a French magazine from 2013. And I know enough French to be able to read it without a translator, and I read it. I thought, oh, she won the appeal. That's interesting. Why didn't I see that anywhere else? So I thought, I can't remember exactly how it went, but I kept on looking through the results, and eventually I found the Opus Info website, which is a radio website, and that had beat to appeal judgments in 2013 and 2016. And so I read them, and now I realized, hang on, she won in the end on everything that Opus Dei in 2011 said that they won on. So of course the court overturned everything. And sometimes I thought, well, where is this information? And Opus Dei, I looked at the different versions of the language versions of their websites, like English, French, German, Spanish, that all just have the 2011 information. Interestingly, that on the French website, they've got one extra document, which is a kind of timeline process, and that's got the defeats and very limited information and not full information at all. So you know that the state and entity was liable, and the end up to numerous, were liable. So they can probably say, oh, you're just getting that information, but actually you have to work really, really hard to find that very, very small market of information on that French website, in amongst all these other 2011 articles. So for me, I don't trust no to stay on much on anything at all already, but I open it to them if I had a chance. Are you manipulating it? Are you trying to get upranked from your 2011 articles and on the other media from 2011? Are you deliberately not telling us what happened later, hoping we would just never see it? I think that's the case. And it's interesting if you look at the hospitality college in Paris where Catherine worked. It's quite hard to find information on these. Pretty clear, not a hospitality college anymore. She looked on hospitality college, you get taken to all these kind of strange websites that's funny information that don't seem to lead anywhere. And in the end, you can find out that it's now the name John on is for the center that's attached to Couvrel Conference Center. It's just for female members of the work. So it's not a college anymore. So it feels like to me that they've tried to kind of cover up that as well, trying to help people not to find what's happened to their normal. So yeah, it doesn't, everything about it's fishy. Everything about it's fishy about how they are presenting this case and then trying to paper over a situation, not explain what happened. Like I would say, under pressure. They got a few strategies going on. One of them is to say, oh yeah, well it's different now. We've updated things and it's past, and sorry if you feel bad about that. We're not sorry that someone don't admit anything, but we're sorry if you feel bad. And it's just. And another thing, a few other strategies are. One is, oh well, we really have to look into that the situation here, and to what extent was the allegations related to work in this organization or probably stay or our organization is really complex. They're gonna make things really hard to work out exactly who did what, as though there was some sort of independence between these organizations rather than they all being controlled through the hierarchy of the state, which is just the reality. Or that, oh yeah, some bad things happen in some places sometimes, and that's not good. But it's try to deflect from the fact that actually what happens to people is the same everywhere, the same thing that's happening, is it's following the same rules that are being the same treatment, the same practices are the same everywhere, and everyone's getting the same experience. It's not like an exception. I think, in some more organizations that have had abuse claims, you can see, well, there's some bad apples, shouldn't have got in, and it's clearly wrong. But Opus Dei, I think, kind of like try and sort of get that idea across that there's maybe some bad apples around there, rather than it being that the whole practice is a whole organization that Opus Dei is so tightly and centrally controlled that everybody knows it's the same mentality. It's true to a lot of its members. So it's just got a few kind of sort of clever strategies to try and deflect and distract, in my opinion. So with anybody who looks into more detail or knows the work from the inside, we'll stick to it. It all comes down to the fact that if you're in Opus Dei, because you've been coerced, which is the case for most people, you're not free. You can't see things clearly. You just can't. You can't afford to. All you can do, afford to do, is to protect yourself or the organisation, and no matter what it takes. And we know that from groups and religions everywhere. They'll lie and they'll do anything to protect their organisation from extinction. And not just cult nations, any ideology that signs up to a lot of people. Their whole idea is to keep your ideology alive, and no matter what, no matter what the cost is, because that's the right ideology, it's the truth. You can't argue with the truth, especially if the truth comes from God. So it's all what are we talking about? Fundamentally the neighborhood. So there isn't this. So there is tweets about a cult coming out like a cult really. No, it's the way it is. At the end of the day, if you're not free and you think you're free, you can act, and you're not going to act in rushing away to the reality. Well, so I can see beyond you, I can see inside you that you're not really free, and that's true. But now they say, well, you say that, but I disagree. So it takes a long time for the conditioning of a cult to wear off. You have to have a lot of contact with reality for that to happen. And these guys in Opus Dei have been there for decades and decades. They're never going to happen. They've made their bed and that, the lie in it. So we have some moments in there. And they realize, God, why have I done what is this life I've set myself? But, there's no way back here. And I think it's also even difficult to, even make a complaint. There's just better procedure for making a complaint. It's really basic in the heart. So I imagine things that they will be handled. Within our organisation doesn't seem to have any external accountability to the rest of the church, or just like being a part of the church. Every other religious organisation in the church that deals with complaints against it will have some sort of external but even Opus Dei, you don't even know who's going to see the complaint, where it's been involved. There's in their statements they absolutely reject this idea of servitude. So there's a whole range of allegations that you just can't even make, if you phrase it in a way that they don't lie. Because they say, you're accusing us of being slave drivers or whatever, or servitude. Well, we're just not going to entertain that. So they kind of making it even a mockery of their own complaints procedure. It's a joke, really. So there's no sense of Opus Dei as a serious organisation willing to deal professionally with serious allegations against it, unless it absolutely has to. There's no sense of that. And it's not going to ask the church to help it. It's going to try to get the church to stay away from it. It's clear from all documents for Jesus that's how it operates. They're not interested in it, getting help from the church. They want to help the church, but they don't want the church to help them. So imagine that. Yes, it's a really weird situation. We want to help you. We've got so much to offer you, but you didn't help from us all, and we're fine. We want to help you. And it's a bit weird, isn't it? It's like that in real life, but there's Opus Dei some sort of crap force, like the Delta force. There's no right to the rescue of the church, but they don't need to help themselves. It's sort of weird, isn't it? But so nothing about the way that they deal with criticism, deal with challenges, is in any way credible. When they're credible, it just speaks. We can't deal with this. We don't want to deal with this. We want to make on. You should understand me. Most people do want to. Yeah, the reality is, if the church was dealing with with issues to do with Opus Dei. You know, there were complaints to the church for decades and decades and decades. If they were dealing with property, there wouldn't be any good in the media, good make things further, you know, for if but especially addresses to numerous who haven't been paid, you know, Catherine Tissier, any like others in Argentina who want their money to work. There wouldn't be a need for this to be. And so Opus Dei gets very upset about the idea that people are going to the media saying, you know, just want something to be that, you know, there's no point in them going to Opus Dei, and I'm going to deal with that. There's no point going to the church, since the church haven't got what it takes. They've shown over the decades. No one. I mean, I feel sorry for the church in one sense. They've got Opus Dei within them. This is a very difficult organisation to deal with. At the end of the day, they're responsible for it. Sort of people, or, you know, the only place to go is to civil society, media, to the courts, to make a deal with authorities. There's nothing else will get these guys in place up to their issue.
As I was working through and editing the thoughts and perspective that you heard here today, my interviewee reached out and asked if I would please share these parting words on her behalf. She said, "Making this recording with Rebecca has helped me to be at peace with Opus Dei. Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks to Catherine Tissier for her great example. I will thank you in person in heaven." I hope that you enjoyed this latest episode of the Deep Dive Project. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and if you did enjoy it, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing if you haven't already, because that really helps my channel out a lot. You can find me on Instagram at the Deep Dive Project Official, and if you have information or an experience that you would like to share, you can send me a DM or you can email me at thedeepdiveproject@protonmail.com. Your experiences are valid, and I will not judge you or look down on you for them. You also have a right to privacy, and if that is what you desire, I will do everything in my power to ensure that it is upheld and respected. A quick reminder that if you would like to support my work in a small way, you can buy me a coffee for $5 using the link down in the description of this video. Thank you for being here, and remember, Nolite te bastardes, carborundorum.